Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Happy Mum, Happy Baby, the podcast. Today's guest is a professional matchmaker. He is a certified life coach. He is an author. He is a presenter of shows that you definitely know, Celebs Go Dating and Married at First Sight. I know, you're hooked now. He is a father of 2 boys. It is Paul C. Brunson. Hello.
Hello there. You know what's wild in that intro?
Yeah.
Is I was thinking, the one piece in that intro that I think is the most important is husband.
Yes, it's in my notes and I don't look at it, so the husband wasn't there.
No, but because I think what often happens when you're a parent is the assumption is that being the parent is the more important role. And this is where I know people...
You've spoken about this before, actually, where you are literally like your husband before father.
People always get me for this. And I say, look, you have to lay down the foundation for your child because their love grows out of the love that you have for your partner and the love that you have for yourself. So I would say, like, the best gift that we give our children is our emotional well-being. And that is the first. Mm-hmm. That is the foundation. Doesn't mean you're neglecting your child. What it means is that you're providing a foundation so that your child can thrive.
I guess, does that go even in terms of, marriages that break down or single parents? I guess in those situations, it's about the respect for the other person or creating a foundation that is built on something that the children can thrive from.
Sure. I mean, built on love.
Yeah.
I think the best way to look at this is I always say, let's look at the science.
Yeah.
Can we look at the science on this? Right? Let's look at the science. Because, I'm sure like attachment theory is something that a lot of people talk about now. But what's very important to understand when you think about attachment theory is that it stems from how we perceived love when we were, adolescents.
Yeah.
And you think about that, it's not even how we received love, it's how we perceived it. And that perception is what we see. Our children will be inevitably what they see.
Yeah.
I look at me, I was like, oh my gosh, I've turned into my father. I look like him. I sound like him. I'm sort of arch my back like my father. It's like I've turned to my father. It was like the one guy I did not want to turn. I'm now my father. It's like we'll be what we see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about your father and growing up. What was your childhood like? Where did you grow up?
All right. I mean, it was a blessing. When I look back, it was a privilege. It was a blessing. And I'll tell you why. Because I grew up in New York. Right. And I I was born in Jamaica, Queens. Right. So I was born in basically Jamaica, but in New York. That's where I was born. I didn't know if I was in Jamaica or where I was. So I was born there. And I think what's important when I look back, I think what is key about that is as not just Jamaicans, I think every immigrant has this story where you are, and I'm second generation, right? But every immigrant has a story where you are told that you are better than. Right. And this is something that is controversial, but I'm just going to keep it real with you. We are told, and I'm sure everybody watching, everybody listening who's a part of an immigrant community, right? I'm sure there was one point where your parents or your grandparents said, look, you're better than them, right? So when I was going to school, it was like there were other... say Black Americans. Right. It's like, no. You're Jamaican. You're better than them, right? Those Nigerians, they're cool. You're better than them. Those you're better than them, right? Everything was like, you are better than them. Even other Caribbeans. It's like, oh, he's from Bahamas. You're better. Right? Our rice and peas, much better.
But what did that instill with you? Within you? Did you believe it, or did it make you kind of go, well, I've got to deliver? I guess it could go one of two ways.
It gave me a feeling of greatness. Really? Which is missing from so many, I think so many children don't feel hope. Yeah. Don't feel like they can. And I never, and this is going back to, this is I think, great parenting. This is what my parents instilled in me is I never felt like there were ceilings.
Did you have a lot of family around you?
Lots.
And in terms of, I think one of the things that's missing now is the village.
Yes.
Did you feel like you were part of, did you have that village, that community around you?
Yeah. And I think, it's interesting. That's, in essence, what I'm most concerned about with now that we've moved to the UK.
Really?
Is because we've left family.
Yeah.
And I did. I grew up. I could go to my grandparents' house, a couple blocks this way.
Yeah.
I could go maybe 30 minutes, go to my other grandparents' house. I had tons of aunts and uncles and cousins and family friends who were like aunties, and you didn't know if they were in your family or not.
Are they blood? Or what is...
They look like me, but I don't know, So you had all of that, but then also the neighborhood was very communal. It was, I could go over to my friend's house who lived across the street and just say, you know what, I'm just going to stay here for dinner tonight.
No, really?
And they're like, okay, fine, I'll feed you, right? You know what, I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to sleep over here tonight. Okay, fine. So that was it. And also, where I lived, the neighbors would also discipline you.
Really?
Yeah, it was a different day and age. Like they were like, you know what, you shouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll smack you on your hand for that one, right? Like it was a village that was raising children, and that was what I came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever look ahead to your future and think one day you'd like to be a dad?
Yes, I was early with it.
Really?
And you know how I knew and everyone around me knew, did you ever have a Cabbage Patch Kid?
No, I was never allowed one.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, we'd seen them on the adverts. I'd go around to friends' houses and play. I think they were probably too expensive.
Okay. Well, I don't even know if mine was new, by the way. It could have been a used one because he had overalls that had holes in them already. And that wasn't the style. But I had a Cabbage Patch Kid.
Yeah.
When I was, what was that? Maybe 16.
Right.
I had a Cabbage Patch Kid.
That's old to have a doll.
Oh yeah, his name was Raymond. Bald head, had overalls. The overalls, and I would put Raymond in my bed. It's interesting because I was playing American football. I was this masculine. I was working out. I was on the track team. It was like, I'll throw down if you want to fight. But yeah, I got a Cabbage Patch Kid. This is my Cabbage Patch Kid.
What was everyone else's reaction to the Cabbage Patch Kid?
So this is where I think the safety and the love and on the science side, it's called secure attachment. Mm-hmm. This is where it comes in because I had very high self-esteem. Yeah. So the fact that somebody would maybe laugh at the Cabbage Patch Kid, I didn't care. Yeah. Because I don't need your validation. Because I like Raymond. Yeah. Raymond sleeps with me. You know what I mean? We sleep in the bed together. I was like, yo, this is my man. So I think that part of that parenting and foundation helps with the self-esteem. Yeah. And I had high self-esteem. So I didn't need that. So I then took Raymond to college with me. Right. So I am now in college, 18 years old. And I'm at the parties drinking, all that. But in my
Bring
dorm,
your girls back. Meet Raymond.
Raymond is there. What's up? And I noticed that, you know what? People began to take a fondness to Raymond.
Oh, fondness.
Yeah, they're like, hey, he's got a cat. That's his thing. Everybody's got their thing. Yeah. Paul's thing. He's got a cat. So everyone knew I wanted to have a child early. Yeah.
Right. I love this.
Yes.
Can you remember meeting Jill, your wife, and talking about, whether you would both want families one day?
Let's see, how did that go? That's a good question.
How old were you when you met?
So we were 18.
Oh.
Yeah, so we were super young.
So she met Raymond.
She met Raymond. Oh, yeah, definitely. I still have Raymond.
No!
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Of course I've got Raymond.
Is he in England?
Raymond is in D.C. So we have a home in Washington, D.C. as well.
Okay.
So Raymond is in the home in D.C.
Okay.
But I have very important, because also I started collecting very specific types of art. And so I have all of this in this one area of my important things.
Yeah.
Raymond is in the important things. But so we met early. Right. But she knew of Raymond, liked Raymond. Raymond had a diaper, by the way, too. You know, I was thinking,
I'm loving this.
You know what's wild? I never changed Raymond's diaper once. Like, he had the same
Bad
diaper.
parenting. You know, you bad parenting back then.
Terrible. I was a terrible parent. Terrible.
Poor Raymond.
Poor man, Raymond had terrible diaper rash, you know? But yeah, so she met him. So she came from a big family as well. We have very similar values, which is important. I think very important in selecting a partner. Yeah. One of our values is family. So that's something that's of immense importance to us. So we definitely connected on that value early. Yeah. Yeah. And I love the way she looked. It's very, very important.
Always helps.
Yes.
Let's talk about you and Jill when you first started going, you know, right, this is it. We're going to start trying for a family.
Okay.
Were you, because I know that it took a long time to fall pregnant. Initially, did you go into it quite naively, do you think?
We went into it as the script says. Yeah. The script says, all right, everyone's put the pressure on. Let's do this, right? And first, it's fun, right? Yeah. When I say first, because it took a long time.
My husband was like, think of all the sex.
Yeah, everyone was like, think of all the sex, right? Yeah. Until the sex is not sexing. You know, until you're not getting pregnant. And then the sex becomes arduous. It becomes a task. Then it becomes a worry. Then it becomes, all right, whose fault is it? Yeah. Then you go to the physicians, and then you realize, you know what? You're going to need IVF. And then we went the IVF route. And that in itself is, you know, I've realized too that the industry, or should I say the acceptance around IVF in the United States is different than IVF.
Really?
Different. Yeah, I think we're behind a little bit here.
Really?
Yeah, we're not allowing both participants, because, you know, it could be same sex, it could be heterosexual, whatever, but we're not giving enough support, we're not giving enough care, and we're not placing enough seriousness around what happens when the cycles don't work. Yeah. Because when my wife and I went through for our first cycle, we lost our first child. That is devastating. In the United States, I feel as if there is a higher level of appreciation around that is the loss of a child. Yeah. Whereas I've talked to many people here. I was on Steph's Pack Lunch. And matter of fact, I just saw Steph yesterday. But I was on her show, and we did this whole segment around in vitro fertilization and how the loss of a child through in vitro is just on average just not seen as, it's like, oh, too bad, but no.
Do you think that's because we're really rubbish here talking about a lot of things? First of all, the whole pregnancy thing with people saying you mustn't tell anyone until you're 12 weeks. That's a massive thing that is just not helpful in terms of if anything happens, I want to be able to reach out to those people. You need to for a lot of people. So that's unhelpful. But we're very bad at talking about loss, about grief, I think we're a very fix you nation. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like, don't worry, have a cup of tea.
A cup of tea will solve everything.
So say the right things to kind of get through this moment, and let's hop on at the other side. You know, I don't think we're very good at kind of letting those moments, well, giving those moments weight and sitting in them.
Yeah, I agree. Although I will say, a strong cup of Yorkshire is now my go-to.
Really?
Oh my gosh. It does wonders. It really does help a lot. But absolutely, this nation has a hard time having uncomfortable conversations.
It's having those conversations out there, because I think once people start hearing them, then they open up other conversations.
Yes, and then you can unpack.
How long did it take you to go? You know, with the IVF cycles and stuff, because you went through a lot of cycles.
Yes.
Which is a lot of money.
Yes.
A lot of emotion, a lot of physical, it's just not a comfortable process to go through as a couple. How did you feel with the second pregnancy?
Elated.
Did you allow yourself to feel all of that?
Yes, and all right, I see. This is a good one. So yes, because of the the break, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, because there was after we lost the first child, there was a break.
Right.
Because you know that's when you sit back and you say, okay, maybe we weren't supposed to be parents. You know, and then you look at Raymond, you're like, no, we were. You know? It's so there was a break, and then there was a I think no matter how challenging birth has been for the couple, and I always say the couple because I think a lot of the times the person who's not having the child kind of gets diminished in it.
Right.
But they're in it. They're emotionally intertwined in this thing. You know, I was giving my wife shots every day. I was like, here's the shot, put it in the butt. Like I was doing all this.
Yeah.
I felt the pain, breaking the skin. Like, so I think that, you know, when you begin a cycle again, there's always some hope.
Yeah.
A little bit of hope. And you just hold on to that hope. You don't let it go. So by the time, you know, we had our son Kingston, you know, or knew that we were pregnant with Kingston, it was okay. Like, okay, this is us.
Yeah.
You know, this is us.
And can you remember the pregnancy with Kingston and with Liam?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was there. I was there. Like people who know me, I was in it. I was every doctor's appointment. We had this ritual. We would go. Yeah, you know, when my wife would go for her checkups, we would go to the checkups, and because we were still a little, you know, we were scared that we could lose a child. Yeah. So we always would. This is a little like technique that we use is that we would always buttress the difficult thing with a good thing.
Right.
Something that we could look forward to no matter what.
Yeah.
So there was a Mexican restaurant that had the best chimichangas.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I would have a shrimp chimichanga with some refried, you know,
refried beans.
Nice. Oh my gosh. Have a little margarita on the side. So in my mind, I knew, okay, this is what I'm going to get. And my wife had her thing. This is what I'm going to get. So we would go to the doctor, and then immediately after we would walk to the Mexican restaurant, no matter what. And what was funny is when Liam was born, our second child, we had gone to the doctor, right? We had all planned to go to the Mexican restaurant. We go to the doctor, and the doctor says, this child is ready. And we said, okay, no problem. We'll go to the Mexican restaurant.
This is so funny because me and Tom used to do exactly the same thing.
Really?
We used to go to the same place after every appointment and have like brunch. So it was always a morning appointment.
Yes.
And on the day that I went in, because I had sort of, well, my labour had started, and he wanted to see me because he was going away that day. So he was like, just come in and just see me so I know that I can still go, or, you know, we can sort out what's going on. I was like, okay. And I got to him and he was like, you're 6 centimetres. He was like, no, first of all, he was like, can you feel your contractions? And I was like, yeah, I'm having one right now. I was breathing through it. And he was like, you're 6 centimetres. You need to go to the hospital. And I was like, great. Can I go for porridge on the way?
He's like, no, you need to go. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. Same thing happened.
Did you get to go to the Mexican?
No.
Oh.
No, we had to go.
To be fair, I was there eating my porridge going, this is a bad idea. Why did I think this is a good idea?
See, you're a risk taker. You're a risk taker. My wife was like, we got to go. You know, we got to go. But yeah, it was wild. You know what, IVF is still with us to this day.
Really?
Because this is literally, I think this is the biggest dilemma in my life. And some people say, okay, well, it's a high-level problem. That's a good dilemma. I mean, it's good that you only have this dilemma. We had 9 fertilized eggs.
Right.
Well, 9, should I say, remaining.
Right.
And we still have them.
So my friends who went through IVF, what they found really difficult was thinking that could be Kingston.
Yes.
That could be Liam sitting there.
Yes.
And then when they become very real humans, that's a really difficult thing to think about.
Yeah. I mean, every month or two, we say, what are we going to do? We've moved to a default position of we're just going to keep them frozen. Like, we have not determined what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I always say is, too, is it's a consideration we didn't make when we were going into the process. Because when we were going into the process, the idea was, or at least, and I don't want to diminish what the doctor was telling us, because I think he steered us in the right direction, but he was saying, you want as many fertilized eggs as possible.
Because you don't know what's going to happen along the process, and yeah.
So we got as many fertilized eggs, type grade A and all this stuff. And we're like, okay, this is great. And then we realize, oh my God, we basically have 9, depending on who you talk to, we feel like we have 9 children out here. So that is, that's a tough
And it is a conversation you have to have, because I don't know if it's the same as here in the UK. You have to almost renew them being frozen.
Yes.
You renew the fact that they cost money for them to be where they are.
Yes.
And to be, kept safe and stuff. So it is that. It's not just like they're there and no one's like, how you are constantly reminded of the fact that this is that they're there.
That they're there, yeah. And then you also have these clinics are trying to make make money. So you also have the push of, oh well, we need this for this scientific experiment and this and this. We need to do this and this and this. So you also have this. This alternative perspective of don't just keep them. This is what you need to do. So that's challenging.
It's great that you keep going back to that conversation, though.
Yeah, we have the best thing in my life is my wife, and that's not to diminish my boys.
Yeah.
Because they are incredibly special. I love them, would jump in front of a bus, for them. But the reason why I say the best thing I have in my life is my wife is because we have, all right, I have a buddy who is she's one of the top therapists basically in the world. And she focuses on narcissism. But she told me this thing way back that's always stuck with me. And that is every one of us has a public life, a private life, and a secret life. And most partners or spouses only get to know some of the private life.
Right.
Like, and a great test of this is like, you think, okay, how long, all right, can I ask you a crude question?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to fart in front of your husband?
Do you know what? We've been together. So we've been together since we were 13. And
okay.
And I think it is that thing, because I think getting together so young, I think I've always been aware. I would say that it's only happened in the last 10 years. And so we've known each other for 25 years. So 15 years.
Okay. So that's not like people hearing this are going to be saying, wow, I still haven't.
But even then, that was an accident. I thought it was going to be a silent one, and it absolutely wasn't. And that's a squeaky floorboard. And somebody turned into my dad. There's a floorboard doing something here.
Who put that floorboard there? That's interesting. Yeah. So that's part of our private life, right?
Yeah.
Because we all do it.
Yeah.
But most of us, not some, most, we try to hold back some of the private because maybe for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And so the public, our partner knows. The private, our partner knows some of.
Right.
But rarely does your partner know the secret life.
Right.
And we've reached a point in our relationship where my wife knows it all.
Right.
She knows where the bodies are buried, and it feels...
How long has it taken you to get to that point then?
It wasn't like, so we've been married, it's 22, going on 23 years. I'd say 15, maybe, like right around that.
Yeah.
It definitely didn't happen right out the gate. Didn't happen first 5 years, 10 years. It happened gradually over time.
Yeah.
And I think what instigated it were life circumstances. Like my father-in-law passes away. My wife's sister passes away. It's like my grandfather passed away. It's like when life comes at you, you can either, I think this is where resilience comes in, but when life comes at you, you have to make hard decisions. And in order to make a great decision, you need to have as much information as possible. And I think in a lot of those scenarios, my wife and I would sit across from each other and say, all right, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
But let's really talk about this. Let's talk about the fact that, this person actually had an affair with this person, and this person over here is, should be part of the conversation. Like, we had these very difficult conversations, and I think the difficult conversations opens up these doors from private to secret. And so it's this gradual process. But ultimately, in my opinion, that's the highest level of emotional intimacy. When your partner knows all of you and they still accept you.
Yes. It's that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the stuff that we carry around that we might feel shame about or embarrassed about, or, that we've been told we should feel that way about. To have that one person to kind of go, I see all of you and I love all of you.
And I love all of you, right? So to have that is why I say she's the best thing in my life, because now I feel, unconditionally safe with someone. And there's so much, this world throws a lot at you. And as I get older and I see, I've now had all of my grandparents pass away. And I've now seen, and my father-in-law is now passed away. And so you see, I see my parents, I see my mother-in-law, and I think my wife and I are next up. Yeah. Like, we're next up in terms of being responsible for this family. And even to this day, or should I say in this moment, I already feel a large level of responsibility, and with that comes a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And you need to have healthy places to release that stress. Because if you don't, that's where you turn to unhealthy, destructive, I'll say mechanisms, whatever it may be. And that inevitably not only destroys you, but then destroys all the people that you love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's go back to pregnancies and birth.
Okay.
Can you remember the births of Kingston and Liam?
Oh, man.
Were they like, talk me through them, like first one round? Because I think the first is a little bit scarier in some ways because you don't know what to expect at all. And then I think actually the second, in a way, you've got the apprehension of what came before. So actually it's different because although, it's all different.
It is. So you will, I think, find this hilarious.
Right.
I was almost kicked out of the hospital.
Why?
Because of how into the pregnancy I was. Because, all right, so here's what happened.
Yeah.
All right, so it's a C-section, so it's scheduled.
Yeah.
And I always say, get the first C-section.
Okay.
Get the first
one of the day.
Yes.
Okay.
There is a phenomenal book called the Checklist Manifesto. And in the Checklist Manifesto, it cites a study that has changed my life now when I deal with doctors.
Right.
And in the study, it shows that the highest number of, and this is a little morbid, but I'll say the highest number of fatalities and the highest number of incidents that lead to doctors being sued. When do you think it happens in the day?
Later on in the day.
Exactly. Why?
Because they're tired.
Because they're tired. When's the second time that it happens? So the worst time is at the very end of the day. And what's the second worst time?
God, I don't know.
The second worst time is right before lunch.
Because they're hungry.
Because they're hungry.
And distracted by the fact that they're hungry.
Exactly. And that same study was then done with judges in the United States. And they found that judges gave the highest penalties when? At the end of the day and right before lunch. They gave the lowest penalties when?
The start of the day.
At the start of the day. They're happy. They're like, all right, I'm here. I got my coffee. I'm good. Right?
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, done. The rest of my life, first thing out the gate.
It also makes you want to do everything, either meet for like a breakfast meet, get everything done first.
Yes.
Or after lunch, or not during lunch. I don't think lunch over lunch doesn't work because you're actually hungry at the start of it and you're distracted.
Yes, you're distracted. I mean, unless it's your buddy, you know. But if it's business, no, we're doing it at 8 a.m. We're meeting at 6:55 in the morning. So when we scheduled for the doctor, I was like, what's your earliest slot, sir? Like, tell me, what's your earliest slot? That's what we'll take. So I was there. I was ready. I had my camera. You know, I was ready. And they said, okay, it's a C-section. You know, first, so you know, you can't film here because this is a serious operation. You're going to have to sit here. So I literally had to sit next to, so parallel to my wife. Right. And there was a shield between us, right? Did you have the...
No, but I know of the sheet that goes up.
So there's so it went up to maybe about where I was sitting, maybe about to my shoulder. Okay. And they would say, okay, you know, you could look over. You know, they said, watch out, people are a little squeamish. You could look over, but no photography in this area until we have placed the baby in your hands. Okay. Right? And they were like, just remember, you know, this is serious. You know, and I'm in there telling jokes because I'm nervous. So I'm like,
mechanism,
like, I'm nervous. So I'm going to cut up my wife's stomach. Yeah. So to use the same knife that you use when you're cutting steak. Like, I was the worst jokes ever. But I'm in there throwing jokes. And I could see that people are starting to get a little agitated. Right. So I don't want to agitate them at all. So I say, all right, look, I'm going to shut up. And I'll just take a couple photos because this is a game changer. Like, this is blowing my mind. So they're going in there, and the process of a C-section, if anyone has never seen it, is unbelievable. Like, it is it's like a miracle happening in front of you. You see the talent of the doctors and how far we've come with medicine, but at the same time, it's a scary situation. So I'm just jaw is on the ground, but I'm taking photos. And the doctor says, "Sir, please, like you can't do it." Now, my wife is she's been, you know, she's she's been given enough medication to not fully feel the pain, but she's conscious. Yeah. Right? And I see her kind of look at me. And I was like, oh, man, she's giving me the stare. And I don't want to stress her out. So let me chill. All right? Okay. Then I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn my shoulder a little bit and take the photos from the side because she will want to see this. She'll want to see this. Like, this is amazing. Her stomach is on the table next to her. She'll want to see that her stomach is on the table, you know? So I take a couple pictures. And the doctor stands up. Sir, please. And Jill looks at me and says, oh, please, don't do it. I was like, all right, fine. I'm going to stop. I'm putting the camera down. Like a child, I'm putting the camera down. So they keep on with the procedure. Oh my God, the head is coming out. Oh my gosh, I can see. And then I was like, this is my son coming out. I'm going to take a photo. And at that moment, they said, sir, if you take one more photo, we're going to have to escort you out of the building. No. And I said, oh, geez. All right. And I put the phone back. And Kingston came out, you know?
Oh. And what was that like when you saw him for the first time?
It was, well, I will say, it was momentarily scary. Yeah. Because he wasn't breathing. Okay. And so what they immediately did is he wasn't breathing, so they had to bring him over to, it was a machine. I don't know exactly, but it was like the machine shocked him, essentially. And shocked him. And then I heard him crying. Oh. I was like, oh. Yes, this is my man. And so it was incredible. You know, it was one of those where so it was interesting. When Kingston was born, they allowed us to stay. So in the hospital, which is different than from the U.S. and the U.K. Right. Because in the U.S., my wife stayed in the it was a C-section, but she stayed there for several days.
Oh, really? Well, in the U.K., after a C-section, it's 3 days, usually, that you stay in. But sometimes they do just kind of send people on their merry way, even though they can't walk or do anything for themselves.
I honestly don't know how we could have left the hospital, even in the first 3 days. Yeah, it was hard. But what they did do, which I appreciate that they let us stay. So I think we were there for, oh gosh, I could be wrong on this, but I felt like it was over 3 days that we were there, and when I say we were there, I was there. I slept in the room.
Oh, so you didn't have to have like special hours or anything like that? You could be there the whole time?
I moved in.
That's amazing.
With my wife. My parents, they came. Actually, the whole family came. But
did they wait until they were allowed to come in, or were they like bursting at the door waiting?
They were. Oh my gosh, they were ready. They were all like, it was a bat signal went up.
I was still in the delivery suite. I'd just been stitched, and I could hear my dad talking outside. I was like, wow.
I'm like, but isn't it a good feeling though?
Yeah.
It's like family.
Yeah.
Family. Okay. This is what happened. This is where the difference was. This is good. These are really good memories. So they would only allow Kingston to be in the room with us until a certain time of night.
Right.
And then they would take him and bring him into this other room with the other babies, little nursery. So by the second night, my wife and I were like, hold on for a second. This is kind of like a holiday because we have no responsibilities. We have food here. We have our streaming shows, so we've got our Netflix, and we have this child who's being taken care of by the best doctors.
Yeah, see, that's the funny thing. We don't have that here. We don't have the kids going off to the nursery. So often, a mum who's had a C-section will be left in her bed without her partner there or any support. The midwives will be looking after multiple beds. So they're not going to be able to help that woman who can't move herself get up and lift her baby that she's technically not allowed to lift until, a certain, post-surgery, a certain point. So it's really different.
It is. So there was an incident that happened where my wife, Kingston was not even in the room. Could be day 2.
Yeah.
She stands up to go to the toilet and she faints. Oh. I caught her before her head hit the wall. And I thought to myself, wow, what if I wasn't here?
Yeah.
Like there are many things that need to change. And I think ultimately, I'm not, it's one of these things where I think ultimately what we've done is we haven't placed enough value. And in society, we haven't placed enough value on women.
Yep.
We haven't placed enough value on mothers and the importance of that.
Yeah.
Like, there should be a throne.
If anything, we've gone backwards to where it used to be. Tom's nan will tell me that they were in hospital for 10, 12 days. Oh. And they would just, the kids again would go off to the nursery. They'd all be there together. I mean, they were, they did get put on their front so they could lie flat for a bit. So they'd come, basically they'd lie on their front so that when they left hospital, they could have flatter tummies, which, nowadays we wouldn't have that. Okay. But in that way of kind of everyone being together for days and days and days until you felt more solid so you could leave the hospital and take over. Yeah, I mean, it you feel like that's the way it almost should be. But the policy changed a little bit with Liam. Oh yeah, so how different was this way around?
So with Liam is one I was reserved.
Oh, okay.
Did
Jill give you a talking to this time?
Oh, I mean, it was the same doctor. They were like, you have a reputation. We know you. Okay. We know we're going to check. Okay, you have your phone. Okay. So
you didn't get it confiscated or anything like that?
Didn't get it confiscated. Okay. But I just sat like, wow, this is incredible. Look at that. That tube connects to this. And so I was in it. I know they said that a lot of partners will look away or will get squeamish. But I was just amazed at what was happening. But the distinct difference I remember is, so at this time we have like a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Right? So we have a 3-year-old and we're going through the motions of a 3-year-old. Mm-hmm. You're not sleeping. It's all of that stuff. And Jill's pregnant at the same time. There's all these stresses. Career was taking a different route.
Yeah, Oprah had called by this point.
Oprah had called.
So that's where you were.
Oprah had been involved. So there's a lot more pressures on. So we looked at our, say, 4 or 5 days in the hospital as a holiday. This was going to be a holiday. So we were like, this is perfect. We will give birth to Liam. We will hand him over at 6:00 every night. Yeah. And we will sit in that bed and catch up on, I think it was Game of Thrones.
I've worried about what the is going to have an effect on one of my kids because it was constant. We started listening with headphones in the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we were just like, we're not sure what actually happened to him psychologically.
Oh, man. A whole category of kids are going to be impacted by this show. Yeah. Oh, man, we were like, okay, we're going to catch up. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
Like, this is great. I was even planning on leaving because, there's no alcohol in the hospital. I was like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go get a little wine. Bring the wine in. It's not going to hurt anyone. Have a little picnic. So we get to the room, and they say, oh, we have a new policy. You keep the child.
No!
Oh, my God. I was like, hold on for a second. This was supposed to be a holiday. They say, no, you keep the child. And what happened was, it was a much harder pregnancy the second time for Jill. And so she was just depleted energy. Yeah. So the first 48 hours, it was me. It was me. I was like, this is hard work.
This is not a holiday. It's not what I signed up for.
I should have been watching Game of Thrones, and I've got this baby on here. This is crazy. Yeah.
So very, very different.
Very different.
Can you remember the boys meeting each other for the first time?
I'll never forget. So what we plotted is Kingston was 3, right? So Kingston, what we said, okay, look, you should bring a gift. You should bring a gift. And so Kingston got a gift, right, for Liam.
Yeah.
But we knew that, it's always touchy when children are meeting, right? So he comes into the room and he sees Liam and he's just looking. And then we say, Kingston, Liam got you this gift. He said, he got me a gift. I got him a gift. He said, we got each other gifts. And before he looks at Liam, he opens his gift. He's like, what did he get me? Oh, a Lego set. He got me, he's such a nice guy. We're like, isn't he so nice?
Oh.
And that's how they met. They met giving each other gifts.
Yeah. That's so cute.
It worked well.
Yeah.
It worked well.
I mean, as we touched on, your career was really starting to take off. You were away from your main base, your home, for long periods of time.
Yes.
And I know you decided to take steps to kind of make sure that the family could be a unit. And I love the thing I've heard you say before, where anything over 10 days, you go as a unit. And that has started from very early on.
Yes. It started from my first TV project.
Really?
Yeah. It started with the project with Oprah.
Yeah.
Because at that time, Kingston was just born.
Yeah.
And we were shooting.
And that must be really hard because obviously you've tried so long to become parents,
right?
And actually, then at the same time, this career opportunity's popped up, so you can't effectively be the parent that you have been longing to be in terms of being present, making sure that you're just how you would have pictured it.
Yes.
Very different.
Yes. And I think that, and this is where I say we have to give the fellas a little bit more credit, is a lot of people were saying to me, come on, man. You're going to go shoot with Oprah Winfrey. You're going on vacation. You don't have to deal with all that. But no, you know what? We get emotional, man. We get emotional too. We are attached too. We love too. I think society hasn't equipped men with the words, and that's a whole thing that we need to work on, is how to be more emotive. But it's there for most of us, not some, for most of us. So leaving, you're absolutely right. It was hard. I was crying at the airport, and I was thinking, is this the right thing? Should I be doing this? And when I went, I had a hard time being away. And that was when my wife and I made the pact, and we said, okay, look, if ever either of us have a project that's over 10 days, we just go together. But in order to do that, because a lot of people hear that and say, oh, well, because you had a TV show and blah, blah. No. I had no money. We had no money at that time. I mean, I was being paid nothing, basically. We were starting a business. We had nothing. I was wearing the same suit all the time. Like, I had no money for wardrobe to the point where there was one day, we had one dark day, one day off, and one of the EPs said, Paul, we're going to take you to the mall, basically. Like, you got to change what you're wearing, you know? And so we had no money. So we had no privilege from that standpoint, no economic privilege. Mm-hmm. But what we decided is that we would have to just set boundaries and restructure our life and not live life according to how the world dictates we should live life. And that was really when my wife and I started to create the life we wanted, opposed to the life that people assumed of us.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how did you start doing that? Because, you know, I think building a structure around your values is really important. But for so many of us, we get trapped into this, you know, I get married, I have a baby, then that baby grows up, they go to school, and we stay in this one house, and then, we'll earn a little bit more money, and then we'll move to a bigger house. And then, you know, that's kind of where it's set. But actually, if you're away from that, you know, how do you find a way that is true to you and Jill and that works for your family? Well,
it starts with exactly what you said, is the values, right? And this is very important, is that very few of us, I think, have done the work on what our values are. Yeah. To the point where I hadn't until I started to get clients. I mean, in full transparency. You know, so with our matchmaking agency, what ended up happening is we would start coaching to prepare our clients before we would match them. Right. And that would go from 2 weeks to 3 months to now 6 months of coaching. One of the most impactful exercises was what we called a values exercise, where every client had to sit down and literally write out their values. And there was a tricky way that we were able to pull it out. We were like, think of a day 3 years from now that's the ideal day, the optimal day, right? And I want you to write down what that day is. Yeah. You wake up at what time? What do you hear? What are you wearing? Who's next to you? What do you do? Right? And I would look at that entire, you know, narrative that was outlined. Maybe it was 3 pages of the beautiful day. And from that narrative, I would look at literally where the most page real estate was. And wherever the most page real estate was showed me, in part, what you aspire to value. Yeah. So you would see someone who, out of 3 pages, 2 of the pages was my family. I woke up and my entire family. My father was in the house. My mother was in the house. My brother and sisters were downstairs. Like, so you knew family. That's the value that you aspire to. So we, and there were other exercises we did, but we would identify the values of our client. And then after we've identified the values, we would help them to make sure that they are feeding those values every week. Yeah. They're doing something to help to bolster those values, because that helps with their well-being. Mm-hmm. This is precisely what I then took into my life. I was like, I'm sitting here talking about values. Do I really know what my values are? Yeah. Because so many of us just read the script. Yep. Like, if you were to ask me before I did that exercise, I would say, I value Christianity. Mm-hmm. Right? I grew up in the church. I was like, yeah, religion, like, that's my thing. And then I realized, man, I haven't been to church in like a decade. You know, I haven't picked, my Bible has an inch of dust on it. You know what I mean? And so I realized, okay, you know, so maybe it's not a top 5 value of mine. And that's not what my community is telling me to have, but that is truly what so identifying the values, your values, that's where it starts, is you have to identify your values. And then the next part I would say is to really look at opportunities opposed to restrictions. Right. A child, immediately what happens when you have a child? They're like, oh, it means you can't travel anymore. Mm-hmm. You definitely can't travel. You're going to bring a 2-year-old with you on the plane? You can't do that. All the diseases and viruses and illnesses and, oh my gosh, how are they going to do it? You got to bring a stroller on the plane? What? Like, yes, we are. We're going to do it. Do you have a problem with it? Doesn't matter, because we're going to do it. So we would look at them as opportunities. Like, we say, okay, no, you know what? We're going to travel right off the gate. We're like with Kingston automatically, you know? And so looking at these opportunities, forming the values, and then last is the boundaries. Yeah. You know, distinctively saying no to things that traditionally we would have to say yes to. Yeah. You know, school was a big one.
Well, and the fact that you're both academics, you know what I mean? You both, well, you are academics, so school is important. Well, learning is important.
Yes, learning is important.
The actual everything that comes with school probably isn't.
No. I don't. There was a school that both of our children went to in Washington D.C. That was a phenomenal school.
Yeah.
It was one of the top-rated private schools. So in the States, we call them private. Here, independent.
Yeah.
In the United States.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting back and I was thinking, okay, let's look at the curriculum of the day. There were many things that were happening or courses and classes and activities that they were doing that I just couldn't associate with their future.
Right.
It's almost like I always go back and I say, in high school, I took a trigonometry class. When I left high school, that was the last time I've ever used trigonometry.
And the stress and everything, and the weight and the time that it would have cost you to spend on that, to try and learn it, to get on top of it,
It just wasn't there. And I was like, then there's a whole other suite of skills that I want them to learn.
Yeah.
I want them to learn the skill of curiosity.
Yeah.
That's a skill. I want them to be curious. I want them to be open-minded. I want them to be resilient.
In some way, did you question, did it take you a long time to get there? Kind of like, no, actually, we're going to go down the homeschool route. Because because it's instilled in us that this is what we do, to suddenly not be doing it. In some way, it's a strange place to be until you land on it with absolute certainty.
Oh, yeah, especially pre-COVID. Because I think, post-COVID, more people have an acceptance.
Yeah.
I still don't think it's mainstream at all.
No.
It's still, you're still going left when everyone's going right.
Absolutely.
But before COVID, it was only, your child must have some severe issue or you have some severe issue where, you know what? Every child has issues. Every adult has issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're trying to help them to develop skills so that they will be the best human beings possible, right? And as the parent, as an active parent, we think we know best. We think we know our child best.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of just confusion.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? For what reason? And especially when we took them out of school, and then we started traveling with them.
Yeah.
They thought, okay, you just want to go on holiday. That's all you wanted to do. No. It's a whole nother level. When we go, our children are entrenched in the culture, in the history. They are journaling.
Because also I feel like learning is something that happens in four walls with a pen and paper. And for a lot of children, that is not the best way that they learn at all. It's actually detrimental to their learning because they'll be so focused on the fact that they can't quite catch up with everyone else. They can't keep up. And therefore, they're not learning.
No.
All they're thinking about is the pressure and the stress.
They need to be in the quote-unquote field.
Yeah.
There was, I think, one of the best field trips that we ever took our children on. We were homeschooling them. We had already quasi-moved to London at this point. And there was a gentleman that was talking to my son, to my youngest son. And my son then walks over and says, "Dad, he sounds like Dracula." He's like, "Is that Dracula?" And I said, "Oh, come on. No. And I said, "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk over and we're going to say, 'Sir, you have an interesting accent. I'd love to know where you're from.'"
Yeah.
So we go over and it takes him a while, but he works up the confidence and he says, "You have a nice accent. Where are you from?" And the gentleman says, "Romania." And then he asked my son, "Do you know where Romania is?" And my son says, "I've never heard of Romania." So we then go into our room and immediately, and this is part of, I think, super effective homeschooling, is that you have to be on top of these things.
Yeah.
And so we go in and we say, all right, go to the map. Let's see where Romania is. Oh, wow, Romania is, by flight, it's less than maybe 2 hours from London. Let's go to Romania this weekend. Let's go this weekend. And by the way, it sounds like a super place of privilege. I promise you, the tickets were like 39 pounds.
Right.
Like 39 pounds.
Yeah.
Cheaper to go fly than go to the pub, you know?
Yeah.
We book tickets. We go to Romania that weekend, and we entrench ourselves in the story of Vlad Tepes, right? Mm-hmm. The actual who, Dracula was really formed around. And then being there in the environment changes things. Yeah. Like we're walking through this one area in Romania, and someone just starts touching my son's hair. Now, this is a big topic in the Black community. Well, I think it's just a big topic, period. But in the Black community, it's a big topic. And the touching of the hair, that then creates a conversation. Why are they doing this? Is that a violation of my person, the fact that they did this? Is it evil? Is it not evil? Like all of these contemplations are not happening, were not happening in that one fixed standard environment. Yeah. And so getting them out into the world, interacting, understanding, meeting resistance, is important. So the homeschooling was incredibly important. But then my children fired me. No. They did.
But so did they decide? Actually, we want to go to school now, or is Jill taken over?
Well, so Jill. By the way, Jill was doing 98% of this. Yeah. I had two main roles.
Okay.
I was the history teacher.
Okay.
And I was the physical fitness teacher.
Okay.
Right? Now, my kids fired me from being the history teacher. They fired me. I thought I was cool. I thought I was a cool teacher.
You took them to Romania.
I took them to Romania.
How rude.
Do you know what I used to do when I was teaching the French Revolution?
Yeah.
We would have French toast. Every time. I was like, this is so cool, isn't it? We'd have French toast. We'd talk about, hey, here's Napoleon was a wild guy, But they fired me. And then
under what grounds?
I have a fixation with the French Revolution.
Okay.
They didn't like that I kept going back to that.
Suddenly you just started singing Les Mis all the time. It was no longer fun.
It was they're like, this is not cool.
Yeah.
And so my wife then takes over history.
Right.
And then she's doing it all. She's doing it all. But then also around that time, where we were living in central London, there were no kids.
Right.
Like no kids.
And that is actually a massive part of homeschooling, is being able to socialise them still with other kids, because I think, they can socialise in a certain way with siblings. They can get away with a lot. And I know you actually focus a lot on their relationship. But actually interacting with children outside of the circle is really important as well.
It's very, and they were not getting it. And to the point where we thought, wow, our youngest had a much harder time because they're now in school. So they've now been in school in the UK for 2 years.
How was that transition going back?
Oh, wow. It was like good and bad, light and days. So my youngest had the hardest time, to the point where he went to school the first day, so he was excited. He was like, oh, kids. Because keep in mind, he's been homeschooled with his older brother. He's going to Romania on field trips. Yeah. He's like, I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Those are kids. And he saw them. He saw his peers as children.
Yeah.
And so he goes to school, comes back home. He says, oh, that was fun. I'm not going back. Literally. He was like, yeah, that was fun. That was good. I'm not going back.
Nice field trip. Not doing it.
We were like, Liam, why? He said, they eat with their mouths open. You should see them. I was like, they're kids. You are a child. They are kids. And so he had this he was like, they pick their nose and I was like, they're kids. And so it took, I would say, months to work him back into the system. The school was beautiful because they allowed us to do all kinds of things. Like we would go for half a day. Yeah. Because even to get his stamina, that was one thing that, when you're homeschooling, we would go for, which I think actually is very effective for a child. Yeah. But we would go in spurts.
Yeah.
French Revolution, French toast might not be at 8 a.m. Maybe we do that at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Maybe you've done, physical fitness earlier on. You've done this. So at school, they would have to sit for the however many hours, 8 hours, 7 hours. That stamina took him a while to build that stamina up. It took him a while to engage and interact. And then also there's a difference between, U.S. English and, the English here. The terminology is different for us.
Yeah.
It's different. Yes.
Yeah. And we end the podcast with you completing 3 sentences.
Okay.
The first one is being a dad means.
Love.
I love that. Since having children, I
love more.
And I'm happy when
I'm loved.
Succinct and beautiful. Often I find people, they're still talking 5 minutes later.
Oh, really?
This isn't a sentence anymore. You've written a book. So it's amazing. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. I really do. I was able to, what I loved about this is I was able to go back and assess stories that make me happy that I haven't thought about in so long. So that was very cool. And also being almost kicked out of the hospital.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.